with our meetings. So sorry about the delay. So I do appreciate everybody really hanging in there, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our Mission Canyon Park Sequa Comment community meeting. Before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the project and the presentation, of course, I'm Gabriela Golick. I know a lot of you probably have seen me on the past and working on the project. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my colleague, Melissa Vega, who will be assisting me during the Zoom meeting. We are offering Spanish translations, so I will turn it over to her to provide the instructions for that.
Bienvenidos todos y gracias por acompañarnos esta noche. Instrucciones para tener acceso a la interpretación en español. Localice el icono de interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione su preferencia de idioma, inglés o español. Modo silencio audio original para evitar escuchar ambos idiomas. Ahora comenzará a escuchar la junta en español. Gracias. Gabby, you're on mute.
Thank you. So sorry. Okay, today is not going as great as planned, so apologize. So would like to welcome our project partners that have joined us. Maria Chan Castillo, thank you for joining us. We have Nick Morrell as well with LA County Sanitation. I saw that Nitai Basu was on as well, traffic engineer with Firm Pierce. And I do believe Iman Smith also joined us, our environmental consultant for the Sequa document. So they'll go ahead and chime in and assist me during the comment period. So first, as you can see on the agenda, we'll be doing a presentation on the updates from that document, as well as then taking public comments. So before we jump in, just some meeting guidelines and agendas. I would love to stay as focused on the meeting goal, which is to gather the comments and feedback for the documents pertaining to that mitigated negative declaration document. And I mentioned that, you know, humor is appreciated, but of course, we're always going to be respectful of others and treat each other with respect in all of our ideas and points or value. So if you hear something that you disagree with, you're not required to defend or promote another perspective, but we are asked that you just share your thoughts and comments. So that's what we're gathering. Also, and I do apologize, we're trying to honor time. So we got us started a little later, but I'll do my best to get us on track because the majority of this meeting is really to take comments for the document. So as we move forward here, I'm just going to give you how we'll take comments is we'll be using the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom, and we'll ask you to raise your hand as well. And then we'll go through it as we're called on. I have a slide just to show you where that button is after this brief presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So thank you so much. All right, so we know that our mission here is really dedicated to the preservation of open space, parklands, watersheds, trails, and wildlife habitat as MRCA as the lead agency for the planning and construction process of opening this park. You guys are pretty familiar. I know most of you are very close locally around the park. But it just kind of shows you the real connection that MRCA has, and also the regional open space that this future park will lend from the 405 west. So it's a really important regional connector for wildlife and for our open space preservation as well. I know a lot of you have followed our project history. Really would like to point out that we did come to the public in 2018, and a lot of you have been part of this project, following this project and its progress. So we did get some input. We really appreciated some of those comments. So that is why we ended up going back, reevaluating in 2019. And then in 2020, we really looked at a feasibility study of how we enter and exit the site, because that was safety and traffic were one of those big identifying key factors. And we went to you guys back within October of 2020 with the feasibility study. That is available on the park project website. So if you ever want to go back, kind of revisit what that entailed, please do. It's on missioncanyonpark.com. And then we updated the document in 2021, and now we are here today. So thank you for sticking with us. And we are hoping to bring a better, robust project that's moving forward. So of course, this is our updated map of the park. It's using the existing road, and as our trail system, we're adding some little steps near the bottom. The parking and entrance will stay at Sepulveda. And then there is a connection there to the Canyon Back Trail and other open space that MRCA operates and manages. So that stays the same. We really wanted to highlight the project benefits. A lot of these items are something you'll see. It's going to be a very passive recreation park, trails, and then some of the highlights, emergency and maintenance access only for Mulholland Drive, because it's important to have the emergency access. But we also understood additional traffic needs. So we are having the vehicle access of Sepulveda be the main entry of the park design. We understood a lot with park safety. That was a big concern for us too. So additional patrol of ranger residents is key. Always in California, fire readiness. Luckily with LA County firefighters, they're adding that helipad. We're adding water tanks to the site in the lower area, and the hydrant stays of use. So I know a lot of that's not necessarily in our scope of work, but we are project support of that. So, and that will be within the park boundaries. And of course, traffic conditions. So that led to the feasibility study, which then got incorporated into the MND. As you can see, this is just an example of what a ranger residence kind of looks like. It is fenced off, but it's usually located right off of the trail entrances. This is one that was at Will Acre Park, which is not too far away from Mission Canyon, actually, and also in we manage as well. So it's part of this Sequa document, which is the environmental document. This contains the initial studies and the mitigated negative declaration, and also consists of all the indexes. These are all you are available on the project website, as well as at Brentwood Library, and also at the Supervisor's District Office on the West Los Angeles. So if you need hard copies. Some of the things that were updated and added and more robust descriptions were included for the project were dealing with fencing and gate issues, fire readiness with the tanks and operations of the fire hydrant up at the top pad, park entry and access, obviously addressed, the supplementary patrol, as well as the ranger residents, and more information on that, additional signage, utility improvements based on the new entries, and also a big key was the review and updates to this traffic simulation. So I'm going to briefly touch on that. We did go through this in length in October 2020 of the options that we had of how to enter and exit the site, what really came up as the most impact to traffic, and also additional design constraints. As you can see, our existing condition at the entry of the parking lot is located off Sepulveda. There is an intersection off the 405. There is an uncontrolled Sepulveda intersection here that tees into Sepulveda, and then the Mountain Gate signal. Now, reviewing this area, there is no safe way to turn left, and there was a lot of issues with how safe that intersection is, as well as was there opportunities in other places to make a park entrance. So that was what was looked at during the traffic study. It came across that actually the best, most feasible, and also least impact was the proposed signalization at the existing entry. So what we have here is going to be a left turn in and right turn lane in as well. That's signalized. This signal will be run concurrently with Mountain Gate, so it does act as one signal, so not necessarily separated. So they've timed and worked together so that it impacts the traffic as least as possible. We did have some simulations that came, so the preferred option showed that things were similar, you know, to what we had, maybe a tiny bit worse, or even some better. We can't say for sure, you know, how better, if anything's going to be in the future, but it didn't, the other options we studied were much worse. So the impact coming off of the freeway or other options to enter the site were actually very negative. And we worked tirelessly with LEBOT, Caltrans, and really looked at, and our traffic engineers to really look at these options. So as you can see, you know, with the design constraints and construction timeline, we did find a viable solution and a more safe situation than the current entry that we have at the park. So with that, I really like to discuss just the updates for you guys, timeline and next steps. We have a due date. We opened the comment period time for 45 days. It's actually, we extended it a bit more than what was required. It was 30 days. So at March 7th is the comment due, because it was released in January 20, 2022. So that's a 45-day period. We really would like you guys to please check out the document if you haven't already, and really even write out comments. I will give you on the next slide, you have the instructions on how you can mail it in, or you can email it, and that we'll be incorporating that into the Sequa document and also responding if necessary. So after that is done, we have the reworked document with the comments included. We have a summer 2022 date that MRCA and LA County will adopt these documents as part of the project planning documents. Part of that is also obtaining additional funding to do that work at the intersection with Public Works. Fall, we're looking to complete that project design and start finishing up construction documents. And then permit process begins, and that can be about a year process. So really unknown, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but we're giving a full year time, and maybe a little bit more. And so we can't say we will estimate construction to begin until about 2024 on. So that is just how things are going right now. I just wanted to keep the community up to date with the progress, the next step as we move forward. So, okay, so that's the basis of it, because I really wanted, hopefully everyone got to take a look at that document. If not, I can show you where missioncanyonpark.com, that's where the document exists, like easily downloadable. If not, Brentwood Public Library, you can get the hard copy and a CD of all the indices, because it's a very large, you know, studies. It becomes quite a big document. So please, yes, if you have any questions, and I see some looks like already in the Q&A, we have some people prompting up, and also in the chat. So I will be working with Melissa to go through that, and we can start looking at it and maybe even unmute. So
Sure, I'll get started with that. We
okay,
have about 5 or 6 questions, and please wait to be called on. If you have put yourself on mute, please unmute yourself, and then we will call on you. If you are calling in by phone only, you may mute and unmute yourself by pressing *6. Or if you want to raise your hand, you would do *9. So first person is Sarah Hirsch. If you have another question, you are able to talk now. Sarah, did you have another question, or was it just on the unmute? Okay, I think it was just on the mute and unmute. Next person is Richard. Richard Morgenstern's question is, will steps be taken to prevent the unhoused from using the park as a living space? Richard, you are able to add or to your question if you would like to add on. Otherwise, that is the question.
well, I could go ahead and jump in. I know that we will have additional patrol. I do have actually one of our rangers here. There is protocol to how that is addressed if there's somebody in the park that is unhoused. One nice thing that we will be doing is that the park is going to be closed at night, so it gets checked to make sure everybody is out of the parking lot area. And since we will plan to have some ranger be living on site, that also helps with more eyes and ears on the site. Melissa, let me see if James if he wants to chat about how that is addressed with Ranger Patrol.
Sure. Ranger Latham, are you on?
Hey there, can you hear me? I believe my
Yes.
internet connection's kind of getting weird.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I can hear you. Thank you. Oh, James, I guess the question is how, if we did have a situation with an unhoused person, I just wanted to have you address how that protocol works and how we as an agency handle those situations.
Yeah, sure. So all of our rangers are both law enforcement and wildland fire trained. So we patrol for all kinds of activities to keep the public safe. Most of our ranger vehicles are equipped with firefighting apparatus, and our rangers patrol the parks to ensure that public safety is in place. As far as unhoused individuals, we have a robust program. We're well.
James, looks like we lost you. Well,
so this is Richard Morgenstern.
okay.
I totally understand that there'll be a ranger in residence. That's terrific. The issue that I'm principally concerned about, because we are facing an enormous fire insurance problem up here and fire risks. It's one thing to have the equivalent of a police officer up there, but if the police officer doesn't have the authority and the instructions to remove people who might want to stay there overnight and set up a tent camp, that doesn't do very much good. And so that's what I'm principally concerned about.
Understood. I think that is a general concern, even if they did get into the site currently too. But we are going to try to maintain as best as possible fencing that gets that gets maintained better, entry and exit closed, and as best we can, of course, minimize those impacts for you.
Well, I can walk. I'll be able to walk in through the main entrance. I'm assuming I walk in with a tent on my back, and there I am. Just the way there are cars on Sepulveda Boulevard, right below Mountain Gate, at the south of Mountain Gate entrance, on the entrance to the 405, which are there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and people living in them. Now that's not a authorized place that I'm sure to set up a home, but nonetheless, they're there and they're not moved. So I'm assuming that that's a function of the court rules that prevents you from removing people in certain circumstances. And I'm wondering how that would apply to the park. You don't have to climb over a fence if you can just walk in.
I understand. And that's why I was hoping that, unfortunately, James was cut off. There are ways that we can, with protocol, remove people from parks. And so I know we've done that, as necessary before. I can't personally speak to it because I am not the office, peace officer, but that's what the hope was. And it looks like James's connection is not very good. But, Richard, I am happy to follow back with you on that, and have James, maybe we can have some kind of, I don't know if he has some sort of written policy that we could share with you at least. So
thank you.
yes.
You have my contact information, so I
Okay.
look forward to that.
Thank you.
Gabriella?
Yeah. Oh, James, you're back. Okay.
Here we are. Yeah, I apologize to everyone. My Wi-Fi connection is acting up, so I won't waste time. The difference between what I heard anyway, people being out on the city streets versus being in the park. We have an ordinance where no one is allowed to camp overnight. In fact, the park is closed. No one can be there after sunset. That's what gives us the enforcement that is different than some of these other agencies. Our rangers, if you are not familiar, are law enforcement as well as wildland fire trained. Most of them have patrol vehicles that have firefighting apparatus on board. And we are adept with the people experiencing homelessness throughout LA County at all of our parks. And it's something that we keep a very close eye on, as well as people just being in the park after hours. So we have the enforcement personnel, we have the enforcement tools. And if you visit MRCA parks, I think you would see that it is a bit different than some of the other jurisdictions. And of course, I'd be more than happy to reach out to this individual directly to explain more.
But thank you, James. I think that was very helpful.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Moving on, Peter Samuelson. Peter, if you are on and would like to ask your question, please unmute yourself. Otherwise, I can ask the question for you. The question is, will the Mountain Gate and the new traffic signals be synchronized as they are so close?
And the answer is yes. That was part of our review with LADOT, and it is definitely possible. And that's why it worked better than adding a leg on to like the 405 entrance. So they would run as one. And they would actually synchronize all 4 of those intersections nearby, so that it runs more efficient.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. So may I ask the second question?
Yes.
Is there, I remember reading in the document that there was going to be a footpath between the top, let me call it the northwest corner of the new park and the Upper Canyon Back Trail, as the Upper Canyon Back Trail is connected to Mountain Gate and indeed comes very close to the golf club. Would that, in case of a fire or an earthquake that might block Mountain Gate, be a potential exit to get out of Mountain Gate in a fire?
That existing Canyon Back Road. Well, that path trail it's just going to be a small, like single kind of path trail up from the canyon, from Mission Canyon Park location up. It's nowhere exactly, we measured it's a quarter-mile away from any housing, like anybody's house, but does connect to the fire road. And that fire road, I do believe, is closed off to vehicles. And so it'd just be a linkage like another hiking small area. I don't know if it currently is an emergency fire or earthquake egress currently. I know it's an access for fire vehicles for that area and a fire road. So I'm assuming emergency vehicles use it currently and will maintain that use.
And can I finally ask, will the park be posted no smoking? And can you tell us there will not be barbecue pits?
Correct. That is part of our MRCA ordinance. Those rules will be posted at all entrances and around the park. Correct. And yes, that is something we do patrol and make sure that that's not happening in our parks.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Okay,
Okay, so
next person is Graham Green. Graham, go ahead. Okay, I can ask the question for you. The question in the Q&A is, what mechanism is there to prevent them from using it now? Will these same mechanisms still be in place?
I'm assuming using it would be the park in general, unless Graham, you can chime back in. Currently, it is closed to the public. However, I do know people access the site with an unsanctioned entrance off Mulholland. So we wouldn't have an entrance or exit there for the public. We have just a maintenance and emergency exit there. We would be, it'd be open from sun up to sundown at the lower entrance on the. It can be used as just a, passive recreation. And I think that is kind of how it's being used right now. But unpatrolled and now we'll actually have that jurisdiction to be able to cite people and actually have more safe measures in place. So I hope that answers that question. Graham's on. If not, we can move on. The next question.
Next question is from an anonymous attendee, and the question is, what is the process of keeping track of people going in and leaving at closing times?
We do have somebody go and check we would have someone check our park. So every time that happens that is a, and I can tell you most of our rangers do actively check the park to make sure nobody's in or out. They are asked to leave or they are cited. So there are things that, James probably could chime in too, but that we make sure people are exited the park. We don't just close the gates and not check to see if anybody's still in there. So that is actively checked and made sure as the park closes.
Hey, Gabriella, this is Maria.
Yes.
Can I further state something?
Sure.
This is one of the big reasons why we decided as a partnership with the MRCA is to have a resident ranger at the site for these, reasons that are, for the purpose of what has been brought up, and that is, people lingering after hours, etc. So, if that were ever the case, the ranger is out there to patrol as well. So, I mean, that's the security layer that we have with the resident ranger.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So thank you, Marie.
Okay, next question is from Louis Becker. Oh, sorry,
No,
Irene Sandler. Irene Sandler. Irene, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? I see you also have your hand raised. Otherwise, I can ask it for you. Will you install security cameras that can operate efficiently in daylight and at night? If so, where would they be located?
Okay, so I think we do if it's not included, we do have parks that we have added security systems, especially in the parking areas, places that people access. It's not in all of our parks, but it's not unheard of that we've done that to help with. A lot of it is vandalism in general is what the most common issues that we do find in our parking. So it's not an off the table question. It's just, you know, there's always the opposite side of the coin where we're surveilling people and things like that. So if there is need, I think that MRCA we've done it and it's proven successful with helping deter petty theft and vandalism in our parks. So it's an option.
Irene, did you still have another question? I see your hand was still raised.
Yes, I did have a question about the signal light, because I'm not quite sure how all of the crossings will take place. Could you explain the way cars will know that it's their turn to proceed if they are entering or exiting the park? And they are going to come from both north and south, and they are going to proceed both north and south to exit.
Yes, I mean, there will be a signal that will be at the site. There'll be a left lane. If you're traveling northbound, there'll be a left turn lane in. So you have to wait and there'll be a light for that. And then if you're traveling southbound, there'll be a right pocket turn lane into the park that's more safe for deceleration. So it's lighted. It's going to be a signal where it'll be like a branch, a three-way kind of stop, but it's going to be running with, because they're close to the mountain gate, they'll be running at the same time. So they get synchronized where it doesn't back up into mountain gates, you know, theoretically into the other signal. So that has been done. I've seen it in many of the older neighborhoods in Los Angeles where they have signals pretty close and it do run pretty efficiently. So that's the intent there. But the hope is so that it does get reworked, the intersection a little bit where it's more perpendicular. So the sight lines are better. You can see, you know, up the uphill and downhill better, because I know currently it comes in at a strange angle and is a very dangerous intersection currently.
Yes, and there's one other thing. Have you considered the people who are arriving by public bus?
Yes, that is also incorporated into that traffic study. There is actually a bus stop not too far from there. So that is going to be incorporated into that, how we handle that intersection. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Louis Becker. Louis, go ahead.
Hi.
Mark Stratton is actually speaking.
Routine. First of all, Lois and I represent Bel Air Skycoast, and we, in 2018, our board submitted a number of concerns and we had 21 recommendations, and I'm very happy to see that the new plan incorporates many of them, number one. And number two, we have read the document, and I've talked to Gabriella about this. In the body of the document, in the discussion of protected wildlife, you have to go to one of the appendices to see bobcats, coyotes, lions, and such. And they are very much part of our life here. We had a bobcat in the road last summer, and neighbors in Bel Air Knolls have had images of the mountain lion. So, and since the mountain lion is on the endangered, protected wildlife, I wondered why it was relegated to the appendix and not part of the main body of the document. That's number one. Number two, We are, we have a number of people who would like to make use of the park, and I assume since there's not going to be any motorized vehicles in the park, that there will be mountain bikes. Is that correct?
I do believe it does connect with because Canyon-Back and I know Dirt Mulholland, there's a lot of use of mountain bikes through that.
Yeah.
region.
I want to talk about a safety issue involving mountain bikes. We have people who have disabilities and kids and dogs and stuff that will make use of the park. And the mountain bikes in the Nike Center and Canyon-Back are have caused near collisions and are a bit dangerous. So what we were wondering is, would it be possible to make areas of this 500-acre park, mountain bike friendly, and other areas really pedestrian friendly, as a way of making the park attractive to people who might just want to walk and not have to deal with these racing bikes. I don't know if you're able to do that.
I mean, we can definitely think about that. I know there's like two sides to that argument as well. So I'm not sure how we've had a lot of this back and forth, a lot of this trail use, because a lot of trails are multi-use. And so this conversation has come up quite a bit. And I know between equestrian use and bicyclists and pedestrians, it tends to be some of that where the kind of uses collide. I see what you're saying. I do think it's a great comment. I think it's a bigger picture comment too of the area and how we can use the site. That's a great point. And I just would hope that I know that you talked to me earlier, and I'm very happy with a lot of things that you've been sharing. I think they're very constructive. So just please like write that down. And I know you're going to send me something you said, like send it the official comment. So
we will. We'll do another. We're going to revise our document that we sent in 2018.
Okay.
That all the members of the board at that time signed, and and it'll be part of that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Next question is from Bill Vanderberg. Bill, go ahead. Okay, Bill's question is, what will be done to address the issue of several adjacent homeowners who have extended their properties into the park by building patios and basketball courts?
Yes, I know that there are some current areas that there are some boundary, infringements and things. I mean, I'm not sure if we'll be, the hope is that we're going to have a couple of areas of buffer planting zones, especially for folks that are in the lower, like when properties meet up against like the open areas that are low elevation, that they don't have too much buffer. So that would be some way we can address some of those protruding areas. I'm not sure, Maria, if that's been an issue in the past with property kind of encroachments or things like that. So
well, quite frankly, we're not addressing those encroachments, and it's certainly not a part of this project.
right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And now that I figured out how to unmute myself, I have one other follow-up question. Will there be a way to consolidate or reduce the number of methane escape or whatever they're called to mitigate the methane gases that are there because it was a prior landfill? There just seems to be an awful lot of vents. Could they somehow be consolidated?
That's a great question, Bill. I know that as part of this project, sanitation districts is one of our partners, and that is part of the preparation to opening the park. Is that they had done an assessment of their environmental controls, is what they call them, like all the methane and any kind of lines or kind of infrastructure they have to patrol the landfill. And I know that they will be securing and covering or And we do have actually some folks with the sanitation district, so if I'm wrong, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd be also abandoning some of the lines that are no longer needed. However, the methane burn-off flare station does stay. We would be protecting that even more, like more security fencing, higher. Maybe that's an good area for a camera. So, but there are going to be processes in place before we allow the public to fully have access to the site, so that these are safely maintained by the sanitation district, and also probably reduced, because it has been a long time. So correct, Bill. So there'll be some measures in place that will be of the responsibility of the sanitation districts. And also they continue to monitor their equipment in perpetuity pretty much through as the sites open. So they will have a facility still located at the base there at Sepulveda and be a presence as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Nikki Miner. Nikki, go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering what the purpose was of turning this recently dangerous territory into a public park. I mean, what is the point of going through so much to get this into a park for people to go to, when there are plenty of parks around already that don't have the dangerous situations or the traffic or all the other questions associated with them? What is the point of turning this territory into a park?
So Nikki, as part of the history of the site, as when it opened as a landfill, the intent was always by the county, and that had a big long process back in the 60s to then donate that land as a public open space. Portions of it were actually developed as Mountain Gate. The actual golf course is some landfill, so it is safe to be on. However, this land was designated to stay as open space and not developed for other types of use. So that, I mean, is just the designation of the space, and it's something that I do believe the county and obviously MRCA are happy to be a part of for preservation of open space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next question is from Patrick. Patrick, go ahead. Okay, Patrick's question is, what traffic study has been undertaken to evaluate? Oh, are you on, Patrick?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go
My
ahead.
question was simply, what study has been undertaken to evaluate the traffic patterns that will be put in play by the double signals very close to the Mountain Gate signal, and also parking that will inevitably try to overflow onto Sepulveda and up Mountain Gate?
Sure. Yes, Patrick. Yeah, part of the study is available for you to look at on the park website, which is missioncanyonpark.com, which is located on .com on this slide available, and it does identify how it's being designed. It will have to, there's a lot more process that needs to be done, permitted and reviewed before we can even build it. So that all needs to be done as well. But the simulation was done with the traffic engineers, and that report is available for you to read and look at. So there was a study. I don't believe you can stop and park on Sepulveda as currently, and I don't think we'll be allowing that. So parking will be designated for our park project in the parking. I understand concern about overflow maybe going up Mountain Gate. That is depending. We will be offering a robust amount of parking, over 100 spaces. So hopefully that doesn't become such a big issue, but understood your concern.
May I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
How much money has to be raised to get this project off the ground?
So the initial project started as about 1.5 million, but now with the additional improvements, we are looking to obtain an additional, that this study was done a few years ago, so more probably now. It was about 5 million to do the intersection alone. So there is a substantial amount of funding that does go into it because of the design and the amount of, like, you know, there's a little bit of earth moving and whatnot to make that intersection safe. And some utility work too, because there are utilities that run parallel to Sepulveda. So, yeah.
I do have one more question, and that is this. I heard what the ranger said about his fire capabilities and police capabilities, but my question of you is, what is the difference in the ability of the rangers to avoid people from doing overnight camping in this park versus what allowed the situation of overnight camping to develop in Echo Park?
That is a city park, so that is a different jurisdiction than MRCA, and it sounds like that our ordinances do not allow overnight camping. And I don't know how or why that happened over there exactly and how it became such a big deal, but we do not. If you do go to many of our parks, there are not that type of encampments and such overnight. I can guarantee that. I know that we do not allow that at MRC.
And Gabriella, I can add to that. One
Okay.
of our tactics is preventative patrol. Find people camping early, and quite frankly, we're very successful at that because of the public. On all of our park entrances, we have rule signs, and on the rule signs is a phone number to contact ranger services. So up and beyond our patrol and our rangers or park staff finding those encampments, we oftentimes find them quickly because hikers see it and they call that number, and that number goes to the on-call supervisor. The person calling gets a response within 10 minutes is what we aim for. And we're largely successful at that. And then we respond to it in a quick manner. We do use outreach services, but what we try to do is prevent having to need to use any of those services by, quite frankly, confronting the issue early on. And then, like I said, because of the Public Resources Code and the MRCA's ordinance, we have more than what typical jurisdictions have, meaning nobody can be in the park after hours. It's not a sidewalk and a public place that someone can be 24 hours of the day. Our parks close, and it's a hard closure. Additional to that, we also have resource damage ordinances that can come into effect. And it's not that we hit with a heavy hand, it's just that we are allowed to act early in order to prevent encampments from establishing in the first place.
All right, well, thank you very much. Actually, I'm going to monopolize this for one more question. What will the Mountain Gate residents who have that one way in and one way out on Mountain Gate, 300 homes in this area, what kind of disruption will we experience as you're building this park?
So there will have to be some traffic mitigation measures in place. That is, as we get funding and as we move on to construction documents, that will be something that will be done up with a traffic engineer to at least take away as much impacts as we can while construction is going on. Now it is a lengthy process, about 9 months. It's less than the other option we were looking at, which would take, you know, up to a year and a half. And so that disruption would have been incredibly almost double the amount of time. So yes, as it moves forward, as we gain the funding, this will be something that we continue to be aware with the public on. So thank you. It's a great question. On that note, it is 7:30. I know we have quite a few questions still, but with you know, to honor some time, we can maybe go a few more minutes, like 5 or so, get as many questions as we can. And anything we don't get to, we will download, and I would be happy to at least do a quick FAQ sheet. I know as part of this is we're gathering it too for the actual Sequa document, so that gets incorporated too with our responses in that document. So I'm also happy to then send it out to at least the attendees list that we're happy to answer. So let's go ahead, Melissa, a couple more questions that we can
Sure.
get in.
Next is from anonymous and attendee. Will overflow parking be allowed on Mountain Gate Drive?
Now, I mean, we will not be letting that happen. That's not really the goal of having the parking in the park and having it separate, but I understand that some people might go ahead and do it. So that would be something we could work with the community maybe as it goes on, if there's need, because I know in some of our parks, there have been similar situations like in Will Acre where we have a parking lot, but then it does seep into the neighborhood, and we've worked with them and their council district to then address maybe permit parking or striping that as the no parking zone. So that is something as we continue. We really do have a good connection with our park and the community around it, and we'll continue to monitor that. So hopefully not. We will not be promoting that.
Okay, next question is from Isabel Rothbard. Isabel, go ahead. All right, it sounds like the street where the main entrance is set to be located is being changed from Mission Dump Road to Mission Canyon Road. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's just a name change. We just really wouldn't like it to be called Dump Road. I feel like we can go ahead and move on from that.
Okay. Next question is from Ray Sweet. Will the Upper Canyon Back Trail be locked down at sunset? We are concerned about increasing burglaries at Crown Community.
I do believe Canyon Back stays locked to, well, it stays closed to vehicles currently in that area. I know, James, you do live nearby. So, but however, we would be making sure there, I don't think that we allow for use to either at Dirt Mulholland, but at night. James, could you chime in on that? I think that's where it connects in.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yes, that gate is always closed, with the exception of emergency vehicle access.
Mm-hmm.
The simple matter is, as far as burglaries to the residents around the house, in order to get to Mission Canyon is going to be quite the trek. That doesn't mean that it would 100% prevent somebody from doing it. It just means it's not very likely. It doesn't seem very likely because of the hike that would have to be made. I don't have the actual number of miles that it would be, but it'd certainly be at least a mile, including a hike back up out of Mission Canyon just to get to the top of the ridge at Canyon Back. To me, that doesn't seem like a likely place to ingress and egress for burglaries.
Okay.
Oh,
Next question.
yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think that's Steven. Yeah.
Okay, Steven Drimmer. Go ahead, Steven.
Steven, you're still
So his
muted.
question is, my hand has, oh, sorry. I have a couple of questions regarding the traffic light. Go ahead, Steven.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I know. I noticed your hand did go up right at the beginning. Apologies.
Yeah. So yeah, we've been talking about the entrance for quite a while, and there have been several new traffic lights installed on Sepulveda over the years. We're at Mountain Gate are very concerned about additional traffic lights. It's our only way in and out to the city, to the valley from Mountain Gate, and so. Is it possible to get some kind of a simulation or demonstration as to how this synchronization is going to actually work? Because I have major doubts that it's going to cover all situations. So that's one thing. And then the other question is, when you consider what I personally believe is a far better alternative, having the entrance at the entrance ramp to the 405. Was the reason that you decided not to pursue that and pursue the one that you're now seem to be set on purely a matter of cost? And my third question is, are there going to be population limits for the park so that when they're exceeded, people will not be allowed in, or is it going to be unlimited number of people allowed to use the park at any one time?
Okay, let me start with the first one, simulation of how the traffic light will work. That's a great question, and we have charts and lots of numbers of how it helps or makes they grade, I don't know if you're kind of some of the traffic, the ways they grade actual intersections, and it shows how that option would affect that intersection as well as the other few that neighbor it. So we do have that in the index. Now, it's a great question about actual like a 3D simulation that I'd have to get back to you on with our traffic consultant. It's not impossible question to ask. So I'd have to get back to you on that option. And number two, it wasn't the fact that it was just cost or even time. It was actually that it did impact traffic more because that intersection has the off-ramp leg, which gets backed up. It actually has a worse grade than the existing entry area, like where Mountain Gate is and such. And the amount of use that will be impacting during the high traffic times was actually going to cause more of a backup to your light and other lights, spur balls and back down. So it was a multiple reason why. I mean, obviously cost is one part, but it wasn't the only reason. We would have done it if it was going to simulate the best choice of traffic. I mean, I think ultimately we were really committed and thought, actually myself included, that would be almost the best bet, but it turned out that it was causing more backups along Sepulveda than the other option. So
Gabriella, this is
yes.
Maria. I do want to add, Stephen, that option was rejected by both Caltrans and the Department of Transportation with the city.
Wow.
And that's so. But we did really study it, so I do want to point that out. And then the population cap, I mean, I don't think we do that in our parks currently. We tend to the hope is that this is a large regional connection, that it becomes a part of the larger trail system that's in this area. So we hope that by opening more areas of this type of, larger park passive use, we alleviate some of that. So I understand the concern. Hopefully I can't predict how busy they will be versus, what it is now. So
But Gabrielle, are you planning for pedestrian access to the park?
There is.
So instead of a car, they're just going to walk up Sepulveda and go into the park that way?
I mean, there is a bus stop there, so that is the possibility that people can walk in as well. So it's not, we wouldn't be doing a count every day, we've never done that. So I don't know how
but Gabrielle, mostly I'm thinking people parking on Mountain Gate Drive and getting out of their car, then walking to the park from there.
Right, I do understand that concern. That was, I think, another person spoke to that. So yeah, that is something that we would have to see how that is playing out. We would definitely want to continue a conversation with you guys as that is opened, what's happening, and wouldn't want to block your entrance and exit to your community because you said that is the main entrance and exit, and it's 300 homes, and that is very, we are sympathetic to that. We wouldn't want to be adding to that congestion there. Okay, I do have to say it is 7:40. We did go over a little bit. I know we started a little bit late, 10 minutes late, so I do appreciate with a lot of people who hung in there with us. I also do apologize with some of the issues with the meeting ID and some of that technical difficulty. Hopefully there's still ways to give us comments. That's the whole point. So please, as you see on the screen, you can email the comments to it's comments@iecg-inc.com. Make sure you include Mission Canyon Park Project in the subject line. You can mail in comments as well, Mission Canyon Park Project, Sequa comments. And then that goes to directly to us, Mountain Recreation and Conservation Authority. You can put attention to me, please do. Gabriella Golick, 570 Avenue 26, Suite 100, Los Angeles, California 90065. And all the information, and we will be posting this recording on missioncanyonpark.com, just like we did with the simulation, really trying our best to stay as transparent as possible with the public, and feel free to reach out to me. A lot of you do have my contact. Anyway, so please share. Everybody on this list I'll have their contact as well. So it's a good way to then follow up. So I think we've kind of have a few open questions still. What I'll do is I'll look through them and then maybe be able to address it in an email and send that out to the folks that have attended today. So thank you so much. I do appreciate all the time and the comments, the really good responses. I appreciate this dialogue back and forth as we move forward with planning and hopefully gaining the funding we need to continue this project. So thank you so much. With that, I think we'll go ahead and end the meeting. So thank you so much.